Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Fat Jockey Podcast. I'm joined by Jon and Kev this week, and as usual, Jono will supply us with quality tips and great analysis, while Kev is here to give us in-depth and detailed insight, plus visuals on Big Mac's hot wings and at least 3 different varieties of beer. So between us this week, we're going to give you what we think are our best value bets in the non-handicap markets, and hopefully provide some good analysis and a persuasive case for each of our selections. And we've got 3 each. So interestingly, though, when we discussed which horses we individually thought were the best value, there was one horse that we all wanted and completely agreed on, that was the best value of the bigger priced horses. So given for the first time ever we're in complete agreement on something, we'll be nominating the horse as our best bet 4 weeks out, or 25 sleeps to go, guys, to the festival. 25 sleeps to go to the festival, guys. We're napping it and strongly recommend it to anyone that's not already on board. I'm sure some of you will be. So in total tonight, we're going to be recommending 10 horses on tonight's podcast. So boys, on with the podcast. No rules for this one. You can include shorties, haymakers, everything in between. The only criteria is that you need to make the case that they're really good value and they have a great winning chance. But before we kick off, for everyone that's taken the time to watch this podcast, if there's any poor selections during the podcast, you're going to hear this sound.
Gento?
So, with that, do you want to kick us off, Kev?
Yeah, let's go for Ginto. So, my legion of followers will already be on at 25-1 for the Albert Bartlett, where he's quite rightly the non-run no bet anti-post favourite. I think my legion of followers, when we did that tip-in podcast, include, I think it's myself, I think Rooster Booster, and then Odin and In the Shook, who don't post that often, but peace, guys. Thanks very much. But it's looking like now on the exchanges that Ginto's come in here, and I think he's best priced at 11-2 non-run no bet for the Ballymore, which I think is an absolute knocking good bet to nothing for me, because I don't think there are 3 horses at this trip better than him in England or Ireland. So I'll kick off. Saxon Warrior did an amazing bit in his diary about Racing Post ratings before the race. So anyone that's not read that yet, just pop over there and go and read it, because it's really, really good. And to sort of summarise as quickly as I can, because a lot of people will have already read it, but there are 4 horses that have already sort of got a rating that would win an average or place in an average renewal of the Ballymore, and they are the 2 that would win it and that have posted a number already are Constitution Hill and Dysart Dynamo. And then there's Sir Gerhard and John Bon. So it's pretty safe to immediately rule out John Bon and Constitution Hill, because they're supreme bound. 5-1 non-run no bet John Bon, 5-2 non-run no bet Constitution Hill. If you like tying your money up, fair enough, you could back them because they'd go off shorter, but they're not going to run, so there's no point bothering. And that leaves the Mullins pair, and at the moment, I'm still assuming that only one of them runs. I've seen people making the case that both might run. That's fair enough. Not going to go into that now, because even at worst case scenario, and they did, Ginto for me is by far the best of the rest, and he's already good enough. He's already put a rating to win a weak Ballymore, and this is not a great Ballymore, no matter how we cut it. So I think even if the 2 Mullins runners ran Dysart Dynamo and Sir Gerhard, Ginto would still be a rock solid 3rd favourite, and I'd still back him each way, because I just don't like anything in behind. On official ratings, he's already 146 in Ireland, the highest in the UK, obviously ignoring Constitution Hill, who's not going to run, would be I think Stage Star, and he's 143 in the UK. So he's already £3 higher. If you gave him the Irish tax, he'd have almost half a stone in hand on anything. You've got a horse like Walking on Air that's going to get beat by Spectre's horse this weekend, so he's not going to be a factor.
That would be nice.
So, there's absolutely nothing in the UK that's put up anything near the level of form that he's put up in that Lawlers of Nace race, in my opinion. In the UK, so his main danger is obviously going to be one of those Mullins horses, but I think both of them, you could argue, would be beatable. So I do think he has a win chance. I think Dysart Dynamo hasn't got, although he's got a high rating, he just looked brilliant over 2 miles, and that's sort of, I know a lot of people like him. I'm not knocking him at all, but it's not really got the substance yet behind it. He's still taking a little bit on faith. So Gerhard would be incredibly solid favourite here. Wouldn't argue that, but I think he's the only horse that is sort of got a genuine case where I think he is sort of a classier horse than Ginto. You've got Journey With Me, who's then sort of the main rival after that, and sort of to me, just looks like a worse version of Ginto. He just doesn't look as fast, and people agree that I suppose they're both. You put them more in the stayers camp than you would speedy horses. I think Ginto's closer to having the better mix of both after what I've seen from both of them so far. And if you believe the exchanges at the moment, Journey With Me sort of now looking like he may not turn up here, which if he did, it wouldn't bother me because I think Ginto's got the beating of him. But if he doesn't, again, it just makes the race even weaker. And that's pretty much it. I can't see why he wouldn't go off second favourite, and I think he'll be closer to going off at 5-2 than he is 5-1. I think you'll get one of the Mullins runners close to even money, well, maybe like 6-4, something like that, and then it might be like 3-1, Ginto's second favourite. So I can't name 3 horses that I think would beat him, and I think he's got a really credible win chance, and it's non-run no bet. So for my legion of followers, if he does turn up in the Albert Bartlett, it's fine. We'll just get our money back and we'll collect. But I really like him. I don't know. I know you two have mocked me all season regarding Ginto. I did go back and look at some of the comments as well. Some people calling him a handicapper and so on. So, what do you guys think?
Ginto? There's an interesting one for me, and it really revolves around Gordon Elliott himself, and what he does and what decisions he makes, and a bit less, as you said, we don't know for sure what Willie's going to do and how he's going to split his two. My view. I think Dysart Dynamo will be the one that does come, and clearly he'll be the one that they all have to beat. But I think Gordon actually could provide another danger himself to Ginto, because I'm not sure which way he's going to go with Three Stripe Life. I quite like that horse, I have to say. I think he's a talented horse. And it may well be that he sticks to Plan A and Mighty Potter and Three Stripe Life both go to the Supreme. But there's just that feeling that I have that he might turn up in the Ballymore. If he turns up in the Ballymore, I think he's a genuine danger, because I think he's probably a quicker horse than Ginto. We know he's talented from the Champion Bumper last year. He's quirky. Without doubt, he's quirky because, he lost that race going down to the start at the festival. And then he went round at the start as well. So, he'd done plenty before the tapes went up. But I think he's a talent. And it'll be interesting to see which way Gordon Elliott goes with him. I think he could be a danger.
Yeah, I think he's a horse. I think I even sort of mentioned myself as the one I took out of the race behind Mighty Potter as well. I definitely do like him. I think since then it looked like he'd go to Supreme, and now Ballymore's definitely back on the agenda. I do like him.
He's not sure which way to go with him. So
no,
he was going to the Supreme early, wasn't he? So that's a change of heart.
Yeah, but still, to me, I think Ginto's just a proven Grade 1 winning animal, and Three Stripe Life, he might get there, but at the moment, I'd be quite happy with.
I think that's fair.
With Ginto.
That's fair. I think you're right. It's easy for me to sort of mock the Ginto thing. I'll do it anyway. But he's a solid horse. I think he's actually a really good choice. I think he's a solid horse for that race. That the winner and probably the place horses are all going to come out of the top 5 or 6 in the market. You don't have to look too far. It may well be there's a woolly second string that appears in there that we have to consider. So that is a thought that again, we're not going to know until Sunday, until the Sunday before the festival, what Willie's running in the race. So I don't think it'll be one. I think it'll be two. I think he'll send two to the race. But the French breds and the horse that started their life out in France don't have a very good record in the race at all. I can't remember one that's placed for him in that race, not let alone one. And the backup horses seem to be the sort of French horses. So, I wonder whether he might have a change of heart and send Kilcrup, for example. So if he's sending, let's say it's Sir Gerard that's going to the Supreme. He sends El Fabiolo and Stateman, for example. Will he think about, maybe diverting Kilcrup as well? So I think he possibly comes into the equation. And we do know that, Willie Mullins does have a habit of switching around very late. So I think there's going to be danger from the main stables, but I do like Ginto. I think there's a few people that, because he had that massive price tag and he got turned over in that first bumper, they've held it against him ever since. And, he's proven that all wrong now. That form was him finding his feet in a new yard, probably wanting for a bit of fitness at the time. He's improved massively and he deserves to go there, with a winning chance, I would say. I think you do have to back him each way. I think you're right. But he goes there. He can win that race. And, that's kind of the point of this podcast. The horse that we're putting up, we believe can win. So I think he's a good, solid selection, Kev.
Once again.
Yeah, I'd love
Amazing
to.
What you can do with no prep.
I'd love to weigh in and shoot him down, but yeah, I think he's solid. I think if he goes Albert Bartlett, which looks unlikely, I still think that's his best chance. Obviously, previous podcast, I said, I think he's going to remind me of Next Destination in his Ballymore run. But end of the day, he finished third, and he's not got that caliber of horse potentially in front of him. I definitely think Willie Mullins he holds the key, unsurprisingly, in a lot of races. Interesting with Three Stripe Life, that switched. I think before the Dublin Racing Festival, Elliot actually said he was a definite supreme runner, and it was Mighty Potter that had the kind of two options. And post Dublin Racing Festival, that switched, which is quite interesting. He's another that I've always liked. I do think Mullins has name checked the Albert Bartlett, but the Nice Guy would be one as just a second string Mullins horse that for me just be vaguely interesting. I don't think he has to go for the 3 miler. I mean, he won the 2 mile 3 recently, and he's only had three runs in his life, which doesn't really suit the unless you're a superstar, doesn't really suit an Albert Bartlett. It's unlikely they're going to get another run into him. Personally, I would go for the 2.5 race with him. It looks unlikely.
Sending him like Kakuna there, though, isn't he? So you kind of bracket those two in the same category. It's a bit like Sir Gerard and Dysart Dynamo splitting those two.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure. I keep hearing conflicting reports of Kakuna, where some reports seem to suggest him saying he'd drop back, and then others said it's potentially not. But
this quote was that he saw no reason to go up in trip.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, Ginto is generally hard to the way the race is shaping up. It's hard to see him not having a fantastic place chance, and he can win the race. Walking on Air, I was really impressed with on debut. He's going to have to step it up again on the kind of Saxon warrior work that he did. I think he's pretty low. Granted, he's only had 1 start, but he's pretty low for what he's achieved in terms of ratings. So he really does have to kick on if he's going to.
In a graveyard for Mullins hot pots as well.
Yeah, it is.
Galley Hill. I can't remember them now. I only did it yesterday. What was it? Galley Hill beaten. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Oh,
Yeah,
I mean, the one I would
Mikel Dagenet, for example. Yeah, those kind of horses.
Yeah, the one I would be really against, even actually for any race, maybe a journey with me. There's no interest in the Ballymore for me after that last run. I know you mentioned the exchanges are going a bit wild with him, but yeah, I'd have no interest in him for the Ballymore, considering he's second favourite. And
my views on him are quite strong. I think you all know my views on him in the Ballymore. I just don't understand it at all.
Come on, I made this Ginto tip 12 minutes ago now, and we're still on the same thing. Who's next? Who's hosting?
Moving along quickly, okay. Go on, John. Next one for you. First one for you.
Yep. So for me, I tried to pick a race that is still pretty open. Now, on one hand, it isn't, because I think it's probably the most solid horse of the whole week in Allaho. However, behind him, I think it is completely wide open. Obviously, it's the Ryanair. If you look at the market, 4 of the top 9 won't go. Energamine, Aplutar, Shakan Boswan, Tornado Flyer. You've then very likely got Conflated going for the Gold Cup. Elliot said that's where they're leaning to, I think, understandably. And then you've also got Envoy Allen, decision yet to be made, but Cheveley Park have kind of indicated it's their preference, at least, for them to go to Champion Chase. So yeah, windy old market, and luckily the several bookmakers are offering without Allaho market already. Obviously, I'm assuming most will do that come the day. Slightly annoyingly, the horse in question is Janadil, and he was 11-2 at the start of the week without. I think Mark Howard tipped him up a day or so ago. So he's down to 5-1 in the without market. But I actually think that's still a fair price. Obviously, you're looking at, if you're going each way, you've got 4 places in the race there that you've got covered. And I think, I've said just obviously how weak that front of the market is. It's very hard for me to see him out of the first 4, actually. You got a big kind of UK trial this weekend coming, in the Ascot Chase, where quite a few are going to take each other on. You've got St. Calvados, Mr. Fisher, and I think the winner of the race, Faka Dudery. I think he's going to win and knock back the UK runners there. So I would imagine, again, not only have you got a market that's primarily dominated with horses that won't run at the top, but I think you've got St. Calvados and Mr. Fisher that will also probably get pushed out in price, which again just makes me look at the kind of the Irish side, and Janadil stands out really. If you look at it, I was disappointed over Christmas. Obviously, me and Kev did the Ryanair pod a few weeks back now, and he didn't actually feature in it. I knew this market was up, and he was a possibility, but I was kind of lukewarm at his Christmas run. Kind of wasn't as bad as I thought watching it back. 7 lengths defeat. He wasn't miles away, and actually,
he doesn't stay.
I've said again.
He doesn't stay
again. So I can't really assess him over 3 miles. Slightly better performance in the Dublin Racing Festival, but again, don't judge him on 3 miles. Because actually, if you look at his form,
Durkin, aren't you? When he was beaten a couple of lengths by Allaho, that's
exactly. And I think that race, it's just going to come down. I think you look back at that race, it's the obvious piece of form. You've got Allaho. He was slightly below par, but given it was his first run, he did well. And yeah, I think Janadil in second. You had the likes of Tornado Flyer, which backed it up. Fakadudui, I think he's a very solid horse in and around this trip. But I would just favour Janadil. If you take Janadil's only had the 8 chase runs, whereas Fakadudui, who I do like, but he's had 15 chase starts. So I think Janadil's got maybe a little bit of improvement in him still. And actually, if you look at his form over 2 mile 4, you have 2, 1, 3, 1. So 2 wins, a second and a third. And the third was at Limerick, and a bit like 3 miles, he doesn't act on heavy ground. He wasn't involved in the race at all. So again, just right a line through it. But yeah, if you single out his runs at the distance you're looking at, you've got 2 wins, a second and a third. And I think he's just got a rock solid credentials for following Allaho home. Allaho's going to dictate it from the front, which should kind of suit Janadil. I think he'll have enough to keep up in the race. His run style will probably be slightly towards picking up the pieces, but again, that will help. He did similar in the John Durkin. His only entries in the Ryanair. So for a Willie Mullins runner, you've got this rare scenario where you've got absolutely no debate of where he's going. The fact that he's tried 3 miles, it's understandable given obviously the Ryanair doesn't really have any trial races. So you either go one way, you go 2 mile or 3 mile through the season, but the record of 3 milers dropping back in the race do well. Again, I don't think he's going to beat Allaho. It would be a shock if he did. But without him, I think he's got a cracking chance. And 3 milers dropping back. If you look, you've got Allaho, Frodon, Balco de Flo, Vautour, Dynast, Q-Card, all actually won the Ryanair, having dropped back from 3 miles that season. So I think actually it's a better route to go, I think, than the kind of 2 milers sometimes step up. Obviously, sometimes it works. You saw Min, and I think Aplutar came third. Similar campaign. Underso. But generally, I think the stayers dropping back, they're the ones to kind of concentrate on. It's hard really to knock him too much. And I'd be pretty gobsmacked if he's not in the first 4 in the race. So if you wanted to play it quite safe, you can go each way.
What price did you say was, John?
It's 5 to, annoyingly, it's 5 to 1. So you kind of, to me, you're getting a free shot if you go each way.
I think that's fair enough.
Yeah,
I think that's fair enough, because I think there's another thing in his favour, and history with Willie Mullins horses in that race. His second string always plays. They just always plays. He's so strong in that race, season after season after season. And look, the Allaho thing, bomb-proof or not, I can't see Allaho putting up a performance like he did last year. Horses never repeat those kind of performances. That was a one-off. He's still the best horse in the race, don't get me wrong. But other horses will be closer to him this year. And Janadil will be ridden to pick up the pieces if something does go wrong with that Allaho, because they'll have confidence in their own horse. I haven't really looked at that without market, actually, and I probably should. And what price is Chamblou in that market?
You get 6 to 1 on Betfair, and he's 5 to 1 on Runner Bet with Paddy Power.
Okay, because one of the things with that race is it really does suit those proper hard front running types. We know obviously that race in the Charlie Hall was going to be ultra impressive and form that does stand up, and he was 25-30 lengths ahead when he tipped up at the last. So He's got the kind of run style, the Frodon type run style. Whether he can do that around Channel, we don't know. But they'll attempt to do that, and they'll know that is the way to take that race on. So I do have some interest in him, but I like the Janadil line because just Willie Mullins, second strings in that race, is just always rock solid. Absolutely rock solid. I think it's a nice bet. I think it's a really, really smart bet.
Yeah, I think it's a hard race for me because personally I don't think any of them stand out as a clear second favourite. So it's a deal. I have backed Janadil in the without, but just looking through, I also think St Calvados could place, and then they're all just so Chamblou could place. Conflated if he ran, I would love. Eldorado Allen if he runs could place, and there's just a lot where I don't see Janadil, I suppose, as stand out that I think he would be the best of the rest. However, I also think it's very hard to say, well, these horses will definitely finish ahead of him. So with it being his only target, I think there is 14 to 1 just outright, which isn't a bad each way price in case anything happened. It's probably worth 14 to 1 non-runner bet. Best odds guaranteed. Not that bad, but I suppose the win part, it depends how much you think he can win. But yeah, I like it. It's not. I just think it's a very hard market, but as you probably know, it's not one that I focus a lot of attention on until we get a bit closer to the day. So I won't take up any more time on that.
Just one other question on that race. And I know we're not analysing the Ryanair here, but you really sort of piqued my interest with the sort of without market. Do we think Asterion Forlonge might go there?
I think he has to now. If he's going to turn up at Cheltenham, I can't imagine they go Gold Cup after the last time.
Yeah, it's such a hard one to weigh up. There's this right-handed thing. Is he good enough? He was running a big race against Allaho earlier in the season, wasn't he? For example.
Yeah, he's 8 to 1 non-run no bet with Paddy Power, and he's 15 to 1, 15.5 to 1 on Betfair at the moment.
I can't trust him, and I
think that's fair.
I completely get him, and I think we all tipped him up for the Irish Gold Cup at Dublin Racing Festival, and he just didn't show up. Because before that, like you say, he was obviously it was 3 outs. You can't say what was going to happen, but he was in money running. He was trading like the winner. He was looking like the winner against Allaho. At the very least, he would have given him a race. And then again, the King George, I don't think he would have beaten Tornado Flyer, but he was nailed on for second.
Yeah, Tornado Flyer was the benefited from a smart ride, really. Pace collapse, and he was the one that did the least.
But obviously,
he'd go off short of an 8 to 1. Sorry, mate. He'd go off short of an 8 to 1, wouldn't he? And if he turned up on the day, he'd get backed into short, and he's 8 to 1 without non-run no bet. So it's not. Oh, would he? People would forgive the last run. They'd look at I'd forgotten when he fell. He was going to beat Allaho, wasn't he? And I know that was early season, but you're absolutely right.
And the pundits will jump on that in the preview circuits. If he's
it's got me giddy just then.
It'll be 2.5 miles against Allaho. Willie Mullins alternative. They will. He'll definitely go off with shorter. Yeah. Okay, right, let's move on. So my turn. So my first horse actually is in the Arkle, a race that's obviously cut up quite badly with Appreciated and Fernie Hollow out. So it starts to look like a wide open race, but it's not really priced up that way, I don't think. There are 3 horses that are very short, and then there's sort of nothing else in the market really, other than big prices. So I don't think that market's right at all. We've seen these kind of Arkles in the past, and they do have a habit of throwing up a bigger price winner. I'm sure we all remember. I don't even want to say his name, Western Warhorse. We've seen other horses in these kind of Arkles that have also placed in big prices. But I don't think the three at the head of the market are particularly clear of a couple of other horses. I think the prices are all wrong. And more so, they're wrong about two horses that are sat there at bigger prices. And it's one of those that I do like specifically. Connections obviously have to make the decision that they're going to go that way because they could go Grand Annual route. And I'm talking about Curse Sublime. So Curse Sublime is rated 148 in Ireland, so he's likely to be 151, 152. Well, I'd say more likely 152, 153 by the time he's been assessed in the UK. That's really at the top end of, last year Sky Pirate 151, broke every trend imaginable, so we'd have to go one step further this year for Curse Sublime probably to win a Grand Annual. And a big handicap like that is probably harder to win or to place in than this year's Arkle. And I just try and think like an owner in those circumstances. Chris Jones spends a lot of money because he wants good horses and he wants them to run in the best races. Sure, he'd like to go and win a handicap somewhere, don't get me wrong. But, I think Connections will very quickly realise that it's an open Arkle. I'm sure they've already discussed that it's an open Arkle, and he deserves to take his chance. He was
especially with Henry de Bromhead as well.
Yeah,
he's got previous as well, hasn't he? So
he has exactly that. He does have previous. It's not a direct comparison, but you can go back 3 seasons ago with the Arkle with Put the Kettle On. When put the kettle on running the Arkle, she had a rating that she wouldn't have been close to top weight in the what was the 2.5 mile
Close Brothers
Novices Chase. And it's the same thought process, isn't it? Because you've got a horse that you think, has the potential to run in a weaker Arkle, no out-and-out superstar in that Arkle. And you think you've got some kind of chance, so you go and take it. You can't wind the clock back and regret it later, can you? So I think they have to go for the Arkle. The other horse that I've considered is CL Deniage. It's a similar kind of thought process, but different owners, different connections. And Willie Mullins has got other horses for the race. Potentially 3 more for the race. I don't think he's going to run all 3, by the way. But CL Deniage would probably be 4th in that pecking order right now, because he's more exposed in terms of his full racing career. And I think they're more likely to take him somewhere else, and possibly up in trip, because I think he'd benefit from going up in trip. And I'll talk about a bit of analysis on that in a second. But, it is a wide open race. One of the things I quite like to do for the Arkle is get a baseline from hurdles. And I know you mentioned Saxon Moray doing some good analysis, and he's done some analysis on Racing Post Racing so far in their chases, and that has some merit. But there's 2 things I like to do when I'm assessing Arkle horses, and that is I want to look at the baseline proven ability over hurdles, and I know that doesn't always translate, but I then spend quite a bit of time watching the races and watching how they jump, seeing how fluent they are, how accurate they are, how they deal with when they need to put a stride and that kind of stuff. And I find that really important analysis when you try to assess, particularly over 2 mile chases. On a previous podcast, I made the case for Sir Gerard going to the Supreme, because despite the 3 mistakes he made at the Dublin Festival in his first race, he was really quick, he was really fast and low over his hurdles, and he was when he got it right at the Dublin Racing Festival. It's the same principle here over fences. So they're the kind of things that I like to do. So just sort of looking back at what kind of horses they were over hurdles, Edgbaston had a peak hurdles Racing Post rating of 154. but only 152 over 2 miles. That 154 was over 2.5 miles. So, there's just a little indication there that Edgbaston might be a bit better over further than 2 miles. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but you want something with speed in this kind of Arkle. It won't be an Arkle that's necessarily won by a stayer. Blue Lord's peak hurdle race post rating was 155, and there's a bit of guesswork there when that was allocated, because it was for his fall behind, when he was weakening behind Appreciate It in the Supreme. And I'm not entirely convinced by that rating. I wasn't at the time. I wasn't at the start. I wasn't at the start of the season looking backwards. I think it's a little bit on the high side. I would have had that nearer to 150. Maybe as high as 152. I wouldn't have got him up to 155. But even so, that's kind of splitting hairs. Riviere de Tel, her highest rating is 131 over hurdles, and albeit, she had less opportunity to improve on that. That was her rating that she was given in the Boodles when she finished 7th. So, that's not exactly, the kind of form that you look at a future Arkle horse at. That said, I can't ignore the fact that I've just used the name of another mare in Put the Kettle On, who didn't have what would typically be the kind of rating you'd expect from an Arkle winner. So, I can't dismiss it on that line alone, and I'm not going to. I'm going to use other criteria for that. By comparison, Curse of Bleem has a 156 peak hurdles rating, so he beats them all in terms of what was his best form over hurdles and specifically over 2 miles. And bear in mind also, he had form in the book that saw him go off at 12-1 in a champion hurdle. His balance of form over hurdles is much better than the other three. But of course, that isn't, this is an Arkle and it's over fences. So, as I said, there are other things that I want to take into consideration for this. I'm not just going to take a hurdles rating and relate it to fences and say, a horse is going to win because he was the better hurdler, which I believe he was, by the way. That's my opinion. And actually, the ratings back that up. So, look, I think there's a few other bits and pieces that are worth considering. I've mentioned Blue Lord falling when he was in the Supreme. He was weakening at the time, and how far would he have beaten Ballyadam and For Pleasure, for example? Ballyadam is a bit of a busted flush, and For Pleasure was beaten senseless by third time lucky not so long ago over fences. So they haven't really done anything that sort of helps Blue Lord from a hurdles perspective. I mentioned Riviere de Tel was 7th in the Boodles off 134. As a direct comparison to ability at the same stage of their career, Curse of Bleem was 2nd in the Triumph Hurdle. So they were a long way apart at that point of their careers. As I say, you can only really use those kind of the hurdles form and racing pose ratings as a guide if you use them in conjunction of jumping fences to predict their potential. And for me, Blue Lord, Edgbaston and Curse of Bleem get a tick in the box in that regard. I've watched all of their races a few times now, and I think that they're all fundamentally good jumpers of a fence. I think I'd probably have Edgbaston just edging it maybe, but not enough to really make a difference. The one that would concern me in that regard is Riviere de Tel. She's jumped right so many times, and she's not going to get away with that in an Arkle. She might get a bit of a weight allowance against the boys, but she's got her jumping's got to stand up to and be able to scratch. And jumping right round Cheltenham in an Arkle it doesn't cut it for me. So she's the one. She's the first one I'm prepared to put a line through, should we say. Going back to Curse of Bleem, Ryanair Chase and debut was beaten 4 lengths by Fernie Hollow, which is probably about the best form line that we've seen so far this season. And if you think about what was behind that day as well, it's easy just to look at, two horses in a race. Behind him that day, and very well beaten by Cursor that day, with the Devil's Coachman, You Raise Me Up, and Gentleman to Me. And two of those horses are horses that people have got quite excited about for the Grand Annual, and see them as, horses that could be extremely well handicapped. Well, they were running on merit that day. Again, it's worth going back and having a look at that race. They were trying that day. If there was going to be any messing around with handicap marks, that was going to happen after that day. But they were put into a very good race, and Connections knew exactly where they were. Well, where they were was beaten senseless by Cursor Bleem, who was only beaten 4 lengths by Fernie Hollow. He was beaten further by Fernie Hollow the next time, and beaten by Riviere de Tel, as it happens. He was giving Riviere de Tel £13 that day. It obviously comes down to 7 because she loses that extra £6 she had. But they made too much use, I thought, of Cursor Bleem that day, and I think it's actually quite useful that race happened, because I think they will have learned from that, and they won't try and chase the pace necessarily in March. I think they'll be, whilst he's not going to be too far away, I don't think he's going to be making any running. So I think patient tactics and £6 better off. I think he can turn the placings around with Riviere de Tel. I also don't like her right-handed jumping around Cheltenham as well. So again, I'm quite happy with that. And if he can genuinely turn that form around with Riviere de Tel, then based on the Dublin Racing Festival, he potentially can be ahead of Blue Lord, can't he? And again, you go back to those sort of basic ability ratings that you took from hurdlers. You put two pieces of information together, and it gives you hope, should I say? So I guess sort of wrapping that up, Ciel de Neige was the other one that I mentioned. I don't think he will come to this race. I'd also say, again, using that same basis, Cursor Bleem was just significantly better than him over hurdles at every stage of their careers. So I see him, even if Ciel de Neige did come to this race, I see him as the better horse. So it's a long way of saying 20 to 1 each way, no run and no bet with 365. That'll do me. I think it's a great bet in a race that doesn't have that much substance, and may end up with less than 8 runners. And if it doesn't, it's because there's a few social runners in there. And there isn't likely to be any more than 4 or possibly 5 horses that you could possibly consider to make the frame. I think, his price is a gift at 20 to 1. No run and no bet, I really do.
Yeah, I've pretty much with the Arkle now decided to wait for the day, but he is one that I know you mentioned him fairly recently on the forum, so I did back off the back of that, and yeah, I think just a quick one on the Arkle actually. I don't know if he won't listen to this, but just so I'm not taking it, this guy called Rory Fitzgerald, and he's just said the shortest priced runner to have won a grade 1 as a novice hurdler is Alexa de Nuts at 33 to 1. So obviously the Arkle so often is you look for the graded novice hurdlers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's no graded novice hurdler from last year. No graded novice winner from last year entered. Just incredible. Shows the kind of standard. Obviously, we're dealing with 2 massive horses that got injured, but yeah, it just shows the level we're dealing with, basically. So yeah, I think it's well worth looking for a decent each way.
Look, even if the market didn't get particularly excited about him, if you think about the way that market forms on the day, he's going to be 10 to 1 or shorter, isn't he? 8 to 1, 9 to 1, 10 to 1. Even if people didn't have any strong opinion about him. I actually do. I think he can win that race. I genuinely think he can win that race. I'm not convinced by any of the front 3 really at the head of the market. I think they're all vulnerable at the price range between 2 to 1 and 7 to 2 or something, or 4 to 1.
No interest for me.
Not for me.
And I agree. I think they will go for this. Obviously, there's been several reports in the past how he was one of the best workhorses at Elliott Yard, wasn't he? Several people have said that. Granted, that hasn't really stacked up, and I know Kev's laughing his head off there, but I just think he's probably going to be working the house down leading up to it. They'll see a weak Arkle or an open Arkle. I think they've got to take a shot, and I think they will.
Yeah, they have to. They just have to. Any thoughts, Kev? Anything to add?
Not particularly. No, he's not a horse that blew me away when I've watched him, but I think I've not really been a fan of him for quite a long time. And when Jono said then about him being a good workhorse, I remember that, and because he was getting talked up a lot for a champion hurdle, I'd forgotten why. But I like him more than I did when I ruled him out a long time ago, and then when you look back now, I can definitely see why at 20 to 1 you would play it. Like I topped up after speaking to you, didn't I? But I mean, I've gone for a book approach in the race, so I don't really want to give too much opinion when I'm basically just playing the numbers in this game now with the way it's panned out. So I haven't really got a strong opinion. I mean, I immediately looked at Elixir de Nuts at 50 to 1 non-run no bet because he's got the best graded stuff as soon as you said that. So it's I have not a lot to add, to be honest, to that, my friends.
It's not it's not an outrageous thought either, Elixir de Nuts, because he's got form around there from his novice hurdle days, hasn't he?
Yeah, he got walloped by Edward Stone, didn't he? And then I've been looking when you were talking, and then beaten again. I'll have another look at that, but no, nothing as strong as you guys there.
What I would say, it is a bit of a weird thing to say, but I know you said it, Kev, on the forum, that he actually wouldn't interest me for the Grand Annual course of Ballymore, because I don't think he's not hidden anything. So yeah, weird. Sounds weird that you fancied him for an Arkle and not the Grand Annual, but
that's exactly my view. That was how I got onto him in the first place. That's why I started thinking the way I did and started to really get quite sweet on him.
Well, you're welcome then, guys. Turns out I'm a genius.
Go ahead, Kev, number 2.
Me when we've got Elixir de Nuts, who we've uncovered the value.
Honestly, the chances of me backing Elixir, it's already there, loaded in the bet slip. The chances are, as soon as one of you two starts waffling again, my mind will be elsewhere, and I'll be posting that I've backed Elixir de Nuts. So, I mean, we're 47 minutes in so far, 3 horses.
At least we waffle sense.
So my next one is going to be a Redemption Day he's 7 to 1 non-runner no bet with some firms, 6 to 1 with one that I've heard of, non-runner no bet, and obviously a lot of 5 to 1. And I just the main case, obviously at Christmas, Willie won all 4 of the bumpers, and the most visually impressive were obviously Facile Vega and Redemption Day. I don't think there was a lot to split them at the time in terms of how good they both looked. I probably had a slight preference for Redemption Day after it. It's hard to I'd missed the price, I suppose, on Facile Vega, so that might have crept in a little bit of bias. But they were both obviously really visually impressive. And then since then, Facile Vega's put in an even more impressive performance. One of the best bumper performances that people have seen. They're talking it up. A bit like Kilcrup last year, but people are really, really talking that up. And the thing that I found just alarming was Patrick Mullins was walking back in, still in his silks, and he just went out of his way to bring up Redemption Day and talk about him being at the same level, and I did try and find the quote, so if we could find that video anywhere, I'll try and link to it afterwards. But he just there was no reason for him to do it, because he had loads of nice ones, and they don't always do that. Like I tipped up Mercury for same connection, well, for Mullins and Ricky and stuff, but again, after he won it, he wasn't talking about him in the same light as Facile Vega, and it was just odd. And I've obviously taken what Patrick Mullins says at face value would be not the easiest way to make money at this anti-post or betting game, that you tie yourself in knots. And I'm sure there's contradictory statements, and I'm sure we'll hear different things on the preview circuit. But it just struck me as really interesting that he would go out of his way to do that, because there was no reason to. There was no reason to couple those two horses together. So I think the fact that one of them's now had the opportunity to put in a massive performance and has sent Facile Vega odds on, and Redemption Day. I mean, if you switch those around, essentially what I'm saying is I feel like Redemption Day could have done the same, and we'd be looking at an odds-on shot. Now, that might mean Facile Vega is too short, which, I mean, for any horse to be odds-on in the bumper anti-post is probably nuts. But I just think it's 7-1 each way. Like, Willie Mullins is setting the standard. I think American Mike obviously needs mentioning. He's put up and is a little bit forgotten about, I suppose. Probably not on the forum, but just in general a little bit forgotten about, because he's not run now for a little while since Willie's just been mopping up. But he'll need to be as special as he looked. And even then, like, it's just going to be it's going to be an Irish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and Willie's going to have half of them place. And you can look at some of the others. So, like, I quite liked Embassy Gardens, but he's been sort of put in his place since. And Mercury I did like, but again, he's just not. He just doesn't seem to be in the same league. And I think they should be a lot closer in price, Facile Vega and Redemption Day. And I just think, if all things are equal, I think he's going to be the sort of number 2 string or number 1 string, which either means he'll have Patrick or Paul on, which happy with either. And I think he's going to be finishing in the first few. Like, if he gets beaten by Facile Vega, I'm okay with that. I personally think Willie Mullins has just got it by the absolute short and curlies. I don't think American Mike will place in the race, personally. And that's just from like a gut. Well, I suppose just taking in, it looks like the strongest Willie Mullins bumper team that I can recall, and he always has a strong team. But this one, it just looks ridiculous. There's nobody getting anywhere near. Some of Gordon's fancied horses keep getting beaten by what are the perceived not first strings from Willie. So I just think Redemption Day is absolutely as rock solid as you can be each way in a champion bumper of 24 horses going as fast as they can. So I really, really like him. I really, really like him. I think he's going to take. I think he'll take a special bumper horse to beat him, and that might be Facile Vega. It might be American Mike, but I'm willing to take my chance at 7-1. I think that's a cracking bet.
Yeah, I really like your thinking on that. I think the whole purpose of this podcast is value. And you get that recency bias thing going on with markets right now, don't you? Facile Vega is the one that's had that run, albeit very impressive, I have to say. But we know there was very little between the two of them at Christmas, and one's evens and even a shade of odds on now, as you say. The other one's 7-1. If you want to talk about value, I think you've just talked about value. Outstanding by comparison.
Yeah, I'd echo it as well. I think he's a great. I'd like to see him run again. I mean, Mullins has sent bumper horses with one run. I think Blue Sari, was he one with one? So it wouldn't be getting at the end of the day.
Brian Hill was one as well, and he was a 5-year-old as well. And
we know Mullins can kind of do what he wants. In all honesty, would quite like to see him again, but I really, really like him. And I do actually think, especially with the bump horses, Patrick Mullins, there is weight to what he thinks. He's the guy in the yard that's solely really around the bump horses. That's his kind of bread and butter.
Yeah, he runs season. All the young horses. That's his job.
Yeah, so to get the line on the bump horses through him is absolutely, I think, a big thing. And yeah, again, I think I said in the last pod how Mullins has just knocked Elliott aside every time. Christmas, he won all the 4 races. All his bump horses are beating Elliott. So I would, again, I'm not dismissing American Mike, but I would think Redemption Day could put it up to him, and obviously then Vassal Vega, etc. But yeah, definitely, I think if you're not on him, you have to be on Redemption Day at those kind of prices.
Yeah, great. Good stuff, Kev. I like that. John, number 2.
Yeah, so the next one is another race where not quite as murky as the Ryanair, but I do think I'm going slightly against the fave here, and that's the Mares' Hurdle. Interestingly, I think, Paul, you're going to put up another one for this same race shortly, but my one is Burning Victory, and she is 9-1, non-runner, no bet. Now, firstly, she could very well just give you your money back in 4 weeks' time, because I have got genuine doubts that she will go here all season long. She's just been getting 3 mile entries when there's been plenty of kind of mares races and middle distance races. You've seen Mullins bring over the likes of My Sister Sarah to the UK. So I've been slightly disappointed in that sense. He has obviously at the start of the year, though, all the quotes were kind of saying back in Mayor's company. And I think the key race and the race I always kind of thought she would run in is the Q Vega Hurdle, which is next Wednesday. So it's a last kind of shot to go for the mares, but it is the race that I thought she would go if she's going to go there. So I'm not going to write it out completely, and I think that's a fair old non-runner no bet price. I personally think if you to look at the mares runners, none of them would have done better than what Burning Victory done in her last race. Obviously, it was over Christmas behind Classical Dream and Flooring Porter. She was well beat like the rest of the field, but jumped lovely, which was the kind of Achilles heel that she's always had. But jumping was spot on, no issue at all. And I don't think any mare could have improved on that at all. So I actually think, although she was well beat by 2 serious horses, it was a fair old run for what hopefully we'll see her dropping back into an easier race and down in trip. If she can replicate that kind of run with no jumping issues, I think she's got a huge chance here. It's down to those 2 races. She's not got a potential qualifier, and she's not going to go for any handicaps. So you are looking at 2 races, and as a former Cheltenham winner, obviously the Triumph a couple of years back, they're not going to miss the race. So it's kind of a 50-50 shot.
You can't call her a Triumph winner and not. She was a Triumph second place, wasn't she? Come on.
Well, she was a Triumph second, but still, she acted on the course.
Well, by half the course, yeah.
I mean, Goshen's an absolute nutcase, so I don't even talk about him anymore. But yeah, she was a Triumph second. But yeah, as a horse that has acted at the course, I don't think they're going to bypass the festival with her. Obviously, Kev, you spoke about Patrick Mullins. Yeah, if you listen to everything he says, you've got to take caution. But early on in the season, he napped Burning Victory in a 3 mile handicap hurdle in December, where she was and actually still is rated 143. Now, she didn't turn up in that race. I think she made an early mistake, never got involved. What I read from that, though, is that clearly connections think she is better than 143. Now, if you were to look at the official ratings in the race, it's actually pretty low. Tell Me Something Girls only rated 142, Royal Kahala 142, Heaven Help Us 140, Marie's Rock 140. You have got two mares, Stormy Island 150 and Echoes in Rain 149. But certainly the top two in the market, I was actually slightly surprised how low their rating was. So Burning Victory is 143. I think she can improve on that. I think she's clearly been hindered by her jumping. If she can continue what she did at Christmas, get that ironed out, add in how kind of Patrick Mullins napped her off 143, I think there's a serious kind of you're going towards the 150s with her. If they can get her to jump as well as she did last time and put it all together. And that's why I think if she does line up in the Qvega hurdle next week, puts in a performance, I think she could be vying for favouritism. So I think she's a big old shortener. You have to back non-run and no bet, but she's only a point shorter. I think she's 10-1 biggest. So you take the 9-1 all day long. Mullins is name checked, finest evermore for the mare for the Qvega hurdle next week. But he usually runs a few in the race. I think you had Lorena versus Stormy Island 1 year, Elfile versus Lorena another. So yeah, I fully expect a couple of his mares to run next week. She's only 6 years old. Again, actually younger than Tell Me Something Girl. And I just think with Tell Me Something Girl, there's an assumption that the weight that she's been having to carry will swing it with a level of certainty. Yes, the conditions of the mare's hurdle will be more in her favour, but it doesn't always work. It's not always that literal. And you also have the fact Henry de Bromhead, there is a slight question mark. You have to think that he's going to be doing everything he can to get his horses peaking at the festival. But he's been going through a pretty dodgy spell, ever so slightly picked up, I think, in the last week or so. But that did include Honeysuckle, which was an absolute given. And we're only 4 weeks away now. So yeah, my idea is basically Tell Me Something Girl. For me, she's quite vulnerable. I think you've got several. I like Heaven Help Us, obviously, a bit of a podcast horse with Paul putting her up. But I think that kind of Royal Kahala, Heaven Help Us, Tell Me Something Girl, there's not much between them. You could throw a blanket over them and get a different result. And I think if you're willing to take the risk and not run a no bet, there is not much of one. I think Burning Victory could line up next week, win the race, and she could be the best horse in the race. And yeah, a lot shorter than she is right now.
Go on, Kev. I'll let you have a go at that. I'm going to cover the race myself. So
yes, that's fine. I know that is coming, so I won't go on too long about it. I love Burning Victory as a horse. Backed for this race last year when she didn't run. I backed her again already. I think Qvega put her up for this before she ran second on the flats. Zarowich, was it?
Yeah,
sure he did.
Zarowich, which
yeah, one of the best. That was a brilliant bit of tipping. I saw that about 5 minutes before the race. Took that. No help for anyone watching now, but I don't care. But I love her. But I've also backed to 100-1 in the Stayer, so I hope she runs there and becomes my first 100-1 winner. I really, really like. I think she'd have a massive chance, yeah. But I think this race is really hard because I can't. I think I like Stormy Island. I can see the case for Tell Me Something Girl. already on Heaven Help Us, really like her, and I know what Paul is about to tip up as well, and I also, whilst that I've annoyed myself really with this one. So yeah, I'll just go to you, Paul.
All right. Well,
So were you just going to say you like the horse Paul's about to put up?
No, I don't. What I'm about to say is I've backed the horse I don't like.
because of the compelling case that's about to.
No. It's already back because it was Benji. We were talking about the horse at 16 to 1 non-runner bet, and I didn't back it, and then he came out and said that's where she's going, so I had to back it. Stupid.
Okay, well,
should have backed it.
Let's get on to that now. I'm actually not keen on Burning Victory, by the way. I don't see her as a winner or even placing in this race personally. Don't like her at all. But we're never going to agree on everything, and we're all going to agree on one horse later. So we can reconcile later, can't we?
I better do some prep on that horse, hadn't I? Now while you're talking,
you probably should. Look, I think you said something right at the start there, Jono. There's a whole heap of mares in that race that are in the low 140s, 140, 140, 142. Including Burning Victory herself. She's not unexposed. She's relatively exposed now. And that race against Classical Dream and Flooring Porter, it was a schooling exercise. She was allowed to jump hurdles under no pressure at all. And every race outside of that, she's made horrible mistakes. The only race she's jumped nicely is when she's just had it easy. And I can't get that out of my head, unfortunately. I'm not so forgiving with that. I think as soon as she's under pressure again, the same problems will manifest. Look, we'll see. Maybe I'll be proven wrong with that, and you'll be proven right. It's one of those where the fun is in the opinions, really, and it's nice to have the debate. But all those horses in a heap in the low 140s. There are, as you said, and these are official ratings. There are two that are high 140s, and that's Stormy Island and Echoes in Rain. Stormy Island is as exposed as hell. We know what she's about. I don't see where any more improvement comes with her, and she's also inconsistent. She doesn't have the best record around Cheltenham, although she did put a much better performance in there last time on the new course. This is on the old course. Might be just worth one of you two guys just checking that, but I think that's right. And they are very different courses. So I think Stormy Island these days wants quite a bit further than this. She does not want an easy 2.5 miles around Cheltenham. That's my opinion on her. Whereas Echoes in Rain, I think, is possibly the complete reverse of that. She's been running over 2 miles. They saw her as a champion hurdle contender, and they were serious about that, clearly. They needed her to settle. They got her to settle. But she's around 150 over 2 miles over hurdles. But if you dig into her breeding, she wants further than that. So I'm going to touch on that as part and parcel of the case I'm about to make. One of the first things I need to do, though, is, I'm doing a bit of a Ruby here and putting 2 horses up for one race, aren't I? So I know I'm quite wide open here. And I still do like Heaven Help Us, by the way. But I liked Heaven Help Us, as a value bet when she was 33 to 1, not when she was single figures. So, I think if somebody was looking to back her right now, she's backable at that price, but you wouldn't describe her as outstanding value, would you? She's been easy pick. She's got nice cross form with, the horses at the head of the market. As I said, Echoes in Rain is the only horse in that race that was considered a champion hurdle contender. So if you want to think about what connections think about their horses, there's a clue in itself.
Was she ever a champion hurdle contender?
They considered her good.
Oh, she was a massive contender.
Yeah, forum talking horse. Not for everyone. Not for everyone.
No, look, she hasn't proved to be quite that level. She's not far short of it. But as I said, I think the switch here for a horse that was considered in that kind of light makes her really interesting. The reason I think she's the price that she is that people see her as a bit of an afterthought, and a lot of people will have nailed their colours to the mast elsewhere. So, it's easy for guys like us who take that sort of book approach, I suppose. But those guys that want to nail their colours to the mast, they've probably already done so, haven't they? So, she then becomes quite a hard bet for people. But the reality is that Willie has said she's coming here. He's been unequivocal about that. The decision is made. She's not going to handicap. Her race is the mare's hurdle. So, we've got that confidence that Willie is saying she goes here, which we don't have for Burning Victory, by the way. So she's backable at a price not utilising no runner, no bet. And that in itself is actually quite important to her being a selection, for a value selection for this particular podcast. I like racing post ratings, as you know, and I keep what I believe are my equivalent of racing post ratings. I rate in a similar way. She's produced 151 and 153 racing post ratings, and she's a pretty unexposed horse at the moment in terms of her young career, shall we say. And as I said, there's a distinct possibility that she can better those racing post ratings Upton trip, because she's an authorised mare. Authorised was the sire of Tiger Roll, Nichols Canyon, both who benefited from going up in trip as they got older and matured. And she's out of a King's Best mare whose progeny are generally affected between 2 and 2.5 miles. So there's every reason to believe that she wants 2.5 miles. It's her trip. And the key thing is they couldn't do that earlier because she wouldn't settle. Now they know she settles. It's a pretty easy decision, really. And coming to this race, for me, is just such an obvious thing to do. And Willie clearly thinks the same. You want to take some comparative racing post ratings because they do show a slightly different picture to the official ratings. I think they are probably more accurate, in my opinion, than the current official ratings of the main contenders in that race. And you commented yourself, John, that they felt a bit lopsided, and I agree with that. Tell Me Something Girl's best racing post rating is 154, which is a couple of pounds ahead of Echoes in Rain. But that she's had 13 starts now, so she's a bit more exposed, and there's still more time for Echoes in Rain to improve on that. And as I said, there's the step up in trip to consider as well. So Tell Me Something Girl, her best is 154 over 2.5 miles. Royal Kahala's best is 152. She's had 10 starts. Stormy Island's best is 152. She's had 128 starts. It's actually 28, so apologies. Her best racing post racing actually wasn't Cheltenham on the new course. It was the new course, so apologies. That stands up, I have to say. Heaven Help Us is 148 over course and distance. She's had 25 starts now in her career. Martello Sky 143 after 12 starts. So she's one that could find a bit of improvement. But Burning Victory, has had 14 lifetime runs now. Her best is 141. So again, she's the wrong end of that scale. She's had enough time now to produce racing post ratings in the high 140s, and she's still not done it. And there's no way, I can't find a way to make a case for it. And I'm not sitting here to try and make an anti-case for her specifically, but we've talked about it. And, on every lifetime run she's had, she just isn't good enough, in my opinion. But as I say, Echoes in Rain for me, there's a nice case and a nice picture starting to build with her. As I say, she's a Willie Mullins horse. Willie says she comes to this race. She's second top rated, only a pound behind Tell Me Something Girl on Racing Post ratings. And Tell Me Something Girl is more exposed, and we know what her level probably is. Echoes in Rain, for me, I believe she can improve past that rating. She's best price 16 to 1. You can get that at 365 Coral and Ladbrokes. Only 17 to 2 with no run and no bet, but I don't think you need it. Don't need that safety net. I'm not bothered about the safety net. Willie's nominated the race, and I just think she's ridiculously good value. I can't understand the price. I think she will end up being a preview circuit horse. I think she will go off, not necessarily favourite, but she'll be very close to Tell Me Something Girl by the time we get there. So that's my case for her.
I think with her, like I personally have never watched her thinking she looks like she wants further, and my feeling is she won't stay. But the reason, and I didn't say this at the time, the reason I backed her in the end is because I agree that she's going to shorten dramatically, I think. And my plan is to either lay her in running, because I think she'll go short and potentially not get home, or lay her, if she goes to favourite, I'll probably lay her for my stake back and let her run as a free bet. That's the play I've got with her, because I just have a doubt. Interesting about the breeding, and you might be right, and as she gets older and now she settles, they're all genuine cases. It's just I personally felt like they would have tried it already at some point going up in trip, and they haven't. And I think the first time her doing it, I certainly wouldn't want to back her the first time she goes up in trip at a short price. So the price she is now, I agree with you. I agree with the case, and like I say, I have backed it. It was a bit reluctant, but it's because I've got some faffing around to do afterwards. Because normally I will sort of let a lot run, but I'm not in a position to do that in this race. But yeah, I think it's a good case for her to shorten. Personally, I don't see her as the winner, but I do think she'll shorten. That's what I feel about that.
Yeah, well, look, she's bred to stay. As I say, you can look at pretty much any sort of authorised, and they want further. They end up 3 miles, sometimes marathon trips. So she's out of that kind of stock. She should easily stay 2.5 miles, and she may end up wanting 3 eventually. Yeah,
well, she may look better for it, but I'll hopefully be in a position to not lose out too badly.
Yeah, absolutely.
She'll do well, finishing second to Burning Victory. Who I just need to say is not anywhere near exposed. She's 6 years old and has 6 runs over hurdles. That is not exposed.
It's more about lifetime runs, though, isn't it? So she's had plenty of racing.
Yeah, she's had plenty on the flat, but I like Echoes in Rain. A big part of the kind of champion hurdle prediction was what Willie Mullins can do with 5-year-olds, and that kind of upward curve. And to be honest, hopefully we're seeing that with her now. Not to champion hurdle level, but there's every reason to think, she has stepped forward. She's 149 now, and there's every reason to think she could probably get in the 150s.
Yeah, not being champion hurdle level's not a problem for this race, is it? Like the men's hurdle's nowhere near champion hurdle level.
A 150 type rating is going to win this race. 150 may win this race in actual fact, because they're in a heat. There is no Annie Power, there's no Limony. There's no Apple's Jade. Although Apple's Jade's probably a really bad example of Cheltenham, but you get the gist. There's no horse of that kind of quality in the race, and I think she's the only one that could be.
Yeah, it's definitely a race that should be targeting the value. So I think it's why we both had 2 shots at it, because it's there for the taking.
Well, it's not coincidence we both looked at that same race, so
yeah.
Okay, Kev, round us off with selection number 3.
Selection number 3 is the easiest and best value bet of the Wednesday, and it is the mighty, legendary Tiger Roll. I can't believe Tiger Roll is 4 to 1, non-run no bet, and it just has to be taken. It just has to. I'd forgotten that he won the race last year, but he won by 18 lengths. He just walloped everything again. He reversed that form with Easy's Land, who looked pathetic last time he ran. He runs again this weekend and might sort of look back to form, but even if he does, there'd be 1-1. So
for the national with him anyway.
Yes, I believe so. So I mean, he's not in great form at the moment. Might be going for the national. Even if it was him back to his best, they're 1-1 and it's 4-1. And then you've got Prengard, who has been running over in France. Obviously, I think Scooby caused the massive price crash on him down to some ridiculous price. I was in a meeting that day, and there's a horse I hadn't heard of that then became single figures for the cross country. And the trainer seems not asked about running him. Says that he said that he's definitely not going to run unless he gets a prep in. I think Saxon Warrior put on the forum it might not be till 27, another 10 days or so, a likely race for him. So, I mean, if he doesn't run, he's going to be evens at best, isn't he? He's got absolutely no competition. I mean, 4-1, even if he was up against those two 4-1s, a fair enough price, and you could sort of hedge between the three of them and be okay. And if the chances are two of them don't turn up, then he's got nothing out. I mean, that'd leave. What does that leave then? What's that Shady Operator that just got touched off in that handicap? But I mean,
Shady Operator and then nothing, isn't it?
Yeah, and maybe Midnight Maestro by the same thing. But Shady Operator, the trainer called him a good sub. I mean, that's not Cheltenham Festival winning form, is it? A good sub. If he said that, but no chance, absolutely no chance that beats Tiger Roll. It's ludicrous. It's like if Tiger Roll was evens and Shady Operator was 10-1, and they were the only two in it, I can be like, right, okay, it's not a bad each way bet. He's obviously decent, obviously. But what are we talking about? We're talking about Tiger Roll. He's a 3-time winner of the race, and the other time he was second to a horse that won by 80, and he was about 20 lengths clear of anything else. I haven't checked, but he just walloped it. He's just way better than everything else. So unless and if Easy's Land turns up again, creditable, but you've got 4-1 in what you consider like a match, and then you've got Prengard, who we could be good, but the trainer just doesn't seem to want to run him. And if he does, again, you're still taking. I mean, Tiger Roll's been there and done it 3 times with a second as well in the same race. Prengard's been running in the races in France. Obviously, the French horses have come over and done well. But we're not talking about any horse. We're talking about Tiger Roll, aren't we? Who else is even in there? Ajas hasn't. Instead, they ran him in March last year in a Grade 2 at Auteuil, and he hasn't run.
He's obviously injured. He's there.
Yeah, he's not run since May 2021, and they chose not to run last year anyway. Yeah, Shady Operator, good backup. And then there's like Far Class and Mortal, both trained by Gordon Elliott.
Far Class is going to the national.
He's going
Midnight Maestro is the one that beat Shady Operator at the weekend, which is another one of the bosses.
Yeah, absolutely. They called him good. He called him good subs, didn't he, or good backup, something like that. So I think 4-1. It was on the forum. It's not. Didn't take me long to spot it because I just agreed with everyone on there that's just saying he's just going to go offshore. It's 4-1, absolutely 4-1 for an 18-length winner of any race, course and distance last year would be massive. And the horse, he's done it. He's already done that twice and a second. I do not understand. If you want to have an absolute swing at 4-1 each way in everything you've got, you're going to get 80% back. There's no way he doesn't finish. There's no way there's 3 horses better than him ever in the history of the cross country.
I wouldn't actually. I admit, literally, there's no. You're not getting horses. If he's in any way near his best to finish ahead of him, but I personally think he's a winner. I think he's probably. I text you after you said, didn't I? I think we've got a outstanding horse we're agreeing on at the end of this. But I think Tiger Roll is probably the bet right now. But I don't have him as an each way shot. I think at 12 years old, I think he's win or bust.
Do you know what? I'm not sure.
I wouldn't touch him each way, but
the reason I like it is just because I think the reason I like him is for like a double. So I've doubled him today with horses that I'd like the each way about. So like I've doubled Tiger Roll with like Aplutar today because I think Tiger Roll will win, and it just gives me a nice place return then on Aplutar. And like I've done that with Tiger Roll. I can't remember the other two I've done it with tonight, but I've met as a single probably not, but I still think he's worth. I just think just in case Prengard turns up and is good, and that's it. That's essentially it.
I think he is perfect for each way multiples. You can do some really filthy ones with horses around those kind of prices. But when you multiply those odds up for the place part, actually, it can be quite nice to a decent stake. So I do quite like playing those. What do I think about him as a single bet being each way? There is still Prengard knocking around. Enderbolger hasn't said Prengard isn't going there. What he said is, he's not going there without a prep. Well, he can go have a prep over hurdles, can't he? He hasn't got to go and find, a cross-country race somewhere or even a chase.
No, absolutely. But
prep him. You can go and give him a 2-mile hurdle somewhere if he wants to.
Yeah. I think
if the horse is in any way shape, unless the horse is injured, why would you not do it?
It's also it's his style actually. If you look, he did it with Shady Operator a few times before the Punchestown race of the weekend. He had a spin over hurdles before that. So Bolger does use hurdles quite a bit actually for his.
So I think people have read into those comments and thought that means he's not going. I don't think it means that at all. I think he just hasn't found which ways he's sending him to quite just yet.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. I suppose if he did
over hurdles, he probably won't worry if that's 2 or 3 weeks before the festival.
No, probably not. I mean, it's just I suppose I also the each way bit of it mainly it was for the multiples, but I would take a swing now because if they don't run, you've got almost an even money shot where you've got the place part as well, and it's just so safe. Just so safe. Like I just
relied on a whole bunch of multiples before the price went away. It hasn't gone. I think if we're talking about value here, I would have Tiger Roll closer to evens than he is to 4-1. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think you know what as well. There's going to be. This isn't a reason to. This doesn't increase his chance of winning at all. But the fact that O'Leary said what he said, and this is likely to be his last run. The people will want to be there for it. People are going to punt him anyway. There's just a chance, if you wanted to trade out of the bet. There is absolutely no chance Tiger Roll goes off bigger than 4-1 on the day. Absolutely zero.
I'd be confident to say that if Prengard doesn't go to the race, he'll go off odds on.
Yeah. I just.
Wait, he has to, doesn't he? It's just he's so far ahead of his competition.
Absolutely, exactly that.
So better than we.
I think he is. We would all agree on Tiger Roll. He's not the one we're putting up later, but I think we would all agree that he is just outstanding value.
Yeah.
And there's so many stories that go around with him as well, and there's the whole sentimental part of that as well. He will get the biggest cheer if he wins at the festival easily. Everybody will want to be in that bloody parade ring if they can get in. Just a shame that the others have said what they've said this week. That doesn't do anybody any favours. Sometimes they just need to shut up. Quite frankly, I don't care whether he's the boss of Ryanair or whether he's a toilet cleaner. Quite frankly, sometimes people just need to shut up. And he needs to shut up about Tiger Roll now.
It's the welfare comment, which is ludicrous.
It's just, the horse is a superstar. He's having his swan song in the cross country. Don't take away from that with all the comments. You just don't need to. Whether you agree with the handicappers rating or not, there's probably a little bit of argument for £1 or 2, maybe. We're splitting hairs kind of stuff. Really, he's not going to get another £10 off, is he? It's all of that's a bit pointless now. That's an axe to grind kind of stuff. He needs to shut up. Let's just see Tiger Roll win. Let's have a bloody celebration.
Yeah. Just a very quick one on Shady Operator and Prengard, actually. If you look back at the last 6 run-ins of the race, all the horses that are placed So yeah, last 18 runners have all had a run over the course. Now that is a negative to me. Obviously, they all get a chance to have a spin when they get there. We know Elliot and Sev will take them there for kind of schooling days. And Bolger has this kind of replica course at home.
Yeah.
But for me, that is a massive negative.
And I think it will be less so for him than most because Ender Bolger has, the replicas at home, so he'll get plenty of the white schooling.
Yeah,
but I think as a general principle, I think that's
how long is it since Ender Bolger actually? How long since the Master of the Banks had a winner in this race?
Yeah, he's probably on the longest cold streak of the lot.
It comes out every year on the preview circuits.
I don't think he's had the horses either. I've trotted that one out, and I've probably been a bit unfair when I have trotted that out because I think the horses had over that period of time, and did you see any winners amongst them really?
Yeah, but I mean, Gordon Elliott started targeting the race, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, and he's just a better trainer with more ammunition, so he'll beat him. He'll need some I think JP. That's what I'm confused about with Prengard. Like they've obviously, they must have had a look at it and thought, well, can we make a dent in this year? And they've sent him a horse that potentially can. And now there's, well, if he runs, then fair enough. I hope he does. I hope he does run. Just for
me too.
Just make it more exciting. Because it's not all just about. Yeah. It'd be great if Tiger Roll has something to beat. It's not going to be as exciting watching him. It's going to be great on the day, I suppose. But just as a talking point, it'll just be great. But yeah, maybe they are trying to win it. But that's why I'm surprised he just hasn't. What I'm surprised about, he just could have. If he needs a run, which is what he said, then why hasn't he run at the weekend? He could run anywhere. He could have run in that race. He could have run. So why didn't he want to get him? Are they looking at next year? Has JP put a call in and he loves Tiger Roll? He's had a chat to Gordon. He loves Tiger Roll. He's lumping on. This 4-1's going to go. JP's going to steam in. No, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense, the things they've said about Prengard.
It was a very strange comment, I thought. Because I'd like Paul, they can just get hurdles run into him. But yeah, why come out? It just don't really.
He's either injured or they give him hurdles running. Which is it? If he's injured, say so. If he's not, then he's going to get a run somewhere, and he's going to run for the festival, isn't he? Because why on earth wouldn't you? You don't spend all that money just from sitting in a box for another 12 months. So. I think they've just, people have just latched on the comments as they were, and they've interpreted them as they want to. I don't think that's what he meant. And if it is what he meant, then I find it really, really strange. But anyway, okay, so let's move on. Actually, just on that thought, it's a good job when you put horses up, but the odds multiply up when you put them in a treble, because Kev's put up 140 to 1-ish treble there, Kev, thereabouts.
279 to 1 the treble. If you go without none or no bet, and if you've got the boost with Labrooks, it's 333 to 1.
Yeah, nice treble. I do like that treble, I have to say. But what I will also add to that is that if you added the odds up and it was just cumulative, those three odds don't add up to a single one of our horses. What's going on?
Well, yeah, that's because last time we did a long shot podcast, you put up something at like 5 to 1, so I got confused. And then in fact, you put up Balco de Flo at 10 to 1, and it was the shortest price. And then it was 20 to 1 a week later. Cracking tipping.
Left myself wide open for that one. Leading the machine. Jono, let's go.
Yeah. So. This is targeting the Albert Bartlett, which kind of a similar theme, looking at races that haven't quite shaped up yet. And yeah, Kev's talked about Ginto. Obviously, the vibes are that he will go Ballymore. I think he would be a very strong favourite for this race, but it's looking unlikely. Not certain, but the assumption is that he goes elsewhere. I think we touched briefly on Journey with Me. I know he's a forum horse, and the vibes were kind of he would take a massive swing at the Albert Bartlett and be a huge player there, but slightly underwhelming last time. And again, depending on how you want to read the exchanges. But yeah, the vibes are that he will go Ballymore. So you've got two kind of big players there. Ginto especially, that will not be lining up. So again, for me, the race looks fairly weak. And actually, I think it's a race where one of the few, the Irish, might not have much of a stranglehold in the race. The Nathaniel Lacey Dublin Racing Festival is often a very good guide for the race. It's one of the ones that and the Limerick race over Christmas. They're the two kind of key races that I look at for the Albert Bartlett every year. I don't think the Dublin Racing Festival was that strong. Obviously, you have Manella Kakuna beating Manella Crooner and Hollow Games. Hollow Games, again, another kind of forum horse. I think we all wanted to see him be the kind of the number one Albert Bartlett runner. I've been a little underwhelmed with his last two runs now, I've got to be honest. I think, yeah, he's got place chances, but that's about it. I think he'd run a very similar to races as last two runs, where he'll be there or thereabouts and just about get a place, really. And I think race and post ratings kind of back up that viewpoint. 144 was the rating given to the winner. Manella Kakuna, that's below the kind of standard. I mean, we've had the likes of latest exhibition, Commander of Fleet, Gaillard de Menil, Statler, all be involved in previous years. You're looking at 151s, 148, 145. So the ratings have it a bit below kind of the best renewals of recent years. I would go along with that. So I don't think the Irish hold too many claims. I mentioned the nice guy for Willie Mullins. He would be a one for the Ballymore, actually, for me. I'd quite like him for that, as a bit of a price. But he has been name checked here. Only one run over hurdles, three lifetime runs. I'm willing to take him on. And it's quite hard then to see too many of the Irish, I think. I mean, Mr. Fred Rogers, I think, runs tomorrow. And then you've got a few others, but nothing really stands out. So actually, I think it's the UK runners that are the kind of ones you need to target in this race. One of which is I'll put up a while back. Listeners will remember in Hillcrest. Obviously, at the time, that's for the Ballymore. He may still go for that race. However, he is entered up in the Doncaster trial, currently jocked up as well. I know that's not always a given, but the signs are that he will run this weekend in their Albert Bartlett trial. So I would assume that is leading him into this race. I think that he fell, obviously, at Cheltenham last time. They did have the 3 mile option that day, that weekend. There were the 2 options. They went for the shorter race, and he fell. So I think it would look like they've kind of shifted their approach and are going for the 3 mile race. I personally think that's where we'll see the best of him. I meant
that
at the time, I kind of thought.
Sorry, John. That Ballymore trial at the festival. In January is often a trial for the Albert Bartlett anyway, because it's on the new course. It's actually much stiffer than the Ballymore itself. So you tend to see horses going up in trip from that.
Yeah, I think was Bobsworth. I think he ran in it, didn't he? 1 year.
Yes, he did. He did.
And I think his performance that day as well, hasn't lived up to the heights that he was given at the start of the year. But Iron Maximus, he just outstayed him that day for me. He got 146 for that run, and I can see 3 miles definitely giving him improvement. He would also fit that kind of mould of having a decent amount of starts. Technically 5 starts after this weekend, but 4 given he fell very early last time. But yeah, he would fit the profile for me. And yeah, connections. Obviously, the late Trevor Hemmings, they just target him by staying Grand National types time after time. He fits that mould. So I'm actually much more interested in him over 3 miles. I can see him winning the race at the weekend. He's not going to be 16-1. You've got 2 options: take 16-1 without any concession, or 14-1 non-run and no bet. So there's not much in it. Might be safer for the 14s, or if you want to just get a couple of points more. Yeah, I would imagine he wins at the weekend. Not a standout trial for the race by any means, but Bartlett Hill won it a few years back, and I think he was favourite. He didn't win the Albert Bartlett, but he was a good favourite that day. I don't think you'll get anywhere. I think it'll be single figures. And again, it's another market that once all the horses sort themselves out, he'll be single figures. You'll be looking at an unexposed 3 miler that's had plenty of starts. Is probably in the 150s, has course form to his name. And yeah, it'll be a rare race where the UK, I think, will have a strong hand. I'd be interested to know your thoughts, Paul. Just obviously having backed him for the Ballymore, what you think of him? Do you think where do you think he'll go first? And what do you think of him over 3 miles?
Yeah, look, I think obviously once I saw the entry at Cheltenham in January, it forced my hand really. So with no run and no bet, I cashed my original bet and added him as no run and no bet for both races. So that was a clear indication to me that the intention was to go to the Ballymore. I think they would have hoped that they didn't have to run again. But clearly, he didn't go very far. He did have a good run around and jumped the poles on the way through. It could have been quite nasty actually, because that was down in front of us where we were sat at the course. It was it was one of those kind of heart. You stop watching the race, heart in your mouth kind of thing when you saw him coming down the chute where the rail just comes to this. He's got nowhere to go, and he's tearing down there. And he tried to stop and was almost forced to jump it. And he jumped it. He's such a bloody huge horse. But anyway, look, setting that aside, you've made the point. He's got to stay in pedigree. I thought they wouldn't step all the way up in trip this season. Clearly, they are. I like his trainer. I like Henry Daly. I think he, is a good trainer of staying chasers. And he's got a horse here that's got a huge amount of promise. He's a bloody giant, and I'd like him for both races. I'd have preferred to see him in the Ballymore this season and stepped up next season. But trainer knows better than I do with that. So if he thinks he wants 3 miles right now, then he wants 3 miles right now, doesn't he? And I think you make a really good point about the race itself. The Ballymore would have been a tougher race. We were, a month ago, we would have been saying it was a weak Ballymore. I don't think it is a weak Ballymore anymore. I think it's shaping up like a very competitive Ballymore with some really good horses in there. So whether that's been part of the decision-making or not, I don't know. But, it's a trainer that I trust to make good decisions about stayers. So I've got him backed. I did add a little bit more to him few days ago, actually. So I just wanted a reasonable position on him for the Bartlett. I've got a better position for him on the Bartlett than I have for the Ballymore. So I've taken that as the indication that that's where it's going, really. I'll leave the no run and no bet for the other one because, why wouldn't you? But I think he's a good selection, actually. And as I say, that kind of race is a good one to target for this kind of podcast because it feels open. You can pick holes in most of the horses at the top of the market. There are reasons to get them beat. And we might do a bit more of that later, actually. But yeah, like him.
Got very little to add to that. Like him, but like others more.
Okay, so last one for me. I just can't get my head around the price here. I think the bookies have lost the plot with the price of this horse. A current champion at 16-1. Paul Bay in the Fox Hunter. It's such an obvious case to make for this one. I don't need to spend too much time doing it, really. 16-1 and Billaway, who beat fair and square last year, is 10-3 in places. It's getting close to 3-1. What a ridiculous disparity in prices. The bookies actually pushed him out from, I think it was 10-12, something like that, pushed him out to 16-1 when he was beaten last time. But he had the same kind of prep last year. And it's all about one day for them. And in actual fact, his rating for that defeat last time was £3 better than his prep the previous year. So he had a slightly better prep. Trends-wise, you're not going to get a much better fit in any race at the festival this year. 10 and 11-year-olds have won the last 7 renewals. Well, he won it as a 10-year-old last year. He's going to win it as an 11-year-old this year. Course winners have got a fantastic record. Well, the record doesn't come much better than having won it last year. Horses coming back to the race from the previous season have an excellent record. 6 of the last 12 came from the top 5 of the previous seasons. Last season's qualifiers are Billaway, Late Night Pass and Staker Wallace. Staker Wallace hasn't been seen all season, so he's AWOL. Although he is priced up in the market, he's AWOL. Don't know what's going on with him, so you couldn't think about having a bet. Paul Bay is attempting to emulate Salsify on the Fringe and Passion de Polder. All 3 were back-to-back winners. All were back-to-back winners in the last decade. And with Paul Bay himself, those horses account for 7 of the last 10 winners of the race. So, as I say, Billaway and Late Night Pass are probably the other 2 trend horses that need considering. But, Billaway is way too short to think about for any kind of bet for me. Could be another sort of dirty each way multiple kind of horse, I suppose. And to be fair, last weekend at Naas, he did seem to jump a bit better in first-time cheap pieces. But I have the same feeling about that as I did really about Burning Victory, who was under no pressure at all in that hurdle race against Flooring Porter and Classical Dream. He was kind of the same. He was in a race where nothing was good enough to get anywhere near him, so his jumping was under no pressure at all, so he could just pop them, really. So, what happens when he's in a big field back at Cheltenham in the Fox Hunter maximum field, with a few rodeo riders in the way as well, lots of distractions. He makes his mistakes in big fields, really, doesn't he? So he's not backable at his price, as I say. He'd be one for the multiples. Late Night Pass at 10-1, 12-1, that kind of price is okay. But it's a kind of how Paul Bay is available at 16-1 as a comparison is just beyond me. He's got the best credentials for the race. As I said, he comes into the race slightly better form than last year. Course and distance experience, best form on offer. Don't see any reason why he can't do it again. The opposition isn't looking any better than last year. He's likely to be taking on most of the same horses again, and the new kids on the block haven't really shown that they're contenders or serious contenders. He's an outstanding price, and I think he should be vying for favouritism. I think he's just, I don't know what, I know a lot of people don't bother with the Fox Hunter, but 16-1, what isn't there to like? He's just stand out, absolutely stand out. That's it, easy case.
Yeah, he's just as he's 14's best price now. Must have just gone. tonight.
No, he's still 16. So what?
Is that the anti-post price?
Oddschecker just moved theirs to
Okay.
the
Fair enough.
minimum and that price. He's still over 16. He's only going for one race. You don't need no one on that. He's 16 to 1 with that 365.
Yeah, fair enough. I'd probably take the 14s in case he got injured, to be fair. But...
Yeah.
But yeah, fair play.
Any thoughts? Anything to add?
I literally, as any horse that won, if you back them blind, you would make a profit off a level stake. If you backed the winners, it also works with placed horses. It takes absolutely no convincing for me to back a horse at double figures that won the race last year. It's not like it's a handicap and anything's changed. It's not like he's on worse terms this year or anything. So, just thumbs up from me. I'm surprised. I am surprised he got pushed out. I know. Well, yeah, I'm just surprised. I agree. I think it's a great bet.
Yeah, I think at the bigger price for me, of all the markets, we've talked about the horses like Tiger Roll that clearly could be closer to evens, but of all the prices, if you want a bigger price, for me, he is the best price of all of them.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I'd echo. It's not a race. I'll be honest. I take too much of my time. But yeah, talking 16 to 1 about last year's winner, who, given the ages of the horses that generally run, 11 years old is not old by any means. So
absolutely,
yeah, it's a good bet.
Okay, so that brings us to the horse that we're all agreed on. Given Kev's done no prep at all, and Jono, you've looked at that race in intimate detail, I reckon you should make the case on this particular horse. If you don't want to,
that horse so that horse is in a race that I've already talked about, and that is the Albert Bartlett and Barderstown Lad. He is available at 20 to 1, and I think 16 to 1 non-runner no bet.
He's only going to that range, isn't he?
Yeah, he only has the one option. He was cited recently, obviously at Musselburgh, just in a small 3-runner race. A Gordon Elliott horse in second, but he won that quite well actually. And that was coming after a bit of a break when he ran at the track 3 miles in October at Cheltenham, where he beat Dragon Bones by 1 length. It was a superb ride by Sean Bowen. It really does. He is all about stamina, this horse. But actually, I was quite impressed with last day. He just looked a little bit. He's not a classy horse, but there was a little bit more class in his last run than what I had kind of given him. I had backed him before on the back of that October run as kind of I think it's 50 to 1, and I thought he's just won at the track, and it's a bit of a swing. But actually, I took his last run, and I was pleasantly surprised. Actually, there was more there that I liked. Obviously, he was 8 to 15 on, so it wasn't a race that will make you stand up and go wow. But I actually thought it made him go up in my estimation. And you've obviously got the trainer who had a similar horse last year in
Streets of Doyen.
Can't remember. Streets of Doyen, yeah. So yeah, same connections. Who finished 3rd in the Albert Bartlett. Also placed at Aintree on the back of that as well. He followed a similar path where he ran at the course in one of the early season races, won at the track, and then they gave him big old break and came out for the Albert Bartlett. So the trainer can target a horse at the race and can do well with one. And yeah, I actually like him. I've said obviously how I view the race. I think it's one where you can take a good shot at it. One, because the front of the market isn't all that, and importantly, the Irish, I don't think, hold too much of a strong hand. Obviously,
apart from this one,
he's got is it 4? Yeah. So I just but given he's coming under the radar, but he's got course form, he's got fair old 5 runs over hurdles. So again, that's the kind of amount of runs that I like to see for an Albert Bartlett runner. And yeah, I think you have to look at him at 20-1. I think he's a brilliant bet at the prices.
Kev, thoughts?
Not a lot extra to add, really. I mean, I got put onto. I'm just going to have a check who put me onto him on the forum, because I was looking at my Albert Bartlett book and I was pretty happy with what I had. And then someone said, check him out before he ran, and I did, and I'm going to credit them with it. So if you want to help me out while I'm clicking through, because I'll probably get distracted, start arguing with someone on the forum.
I'll use the Streets Overdoyen reference first, Jono. You make the point that the trainer knows the kind of horse that he needs for this race. Streets Overdoyen, by the time he got to the festival, he had one of the things that you quite like for that race, and that's lots of experience. And if anything, he had more experience than anything I've seen in there, because he'd run a million times over hurdles.
Yeah, he had a lot of runs over the summer, didn't he? Before.
Yeah. But, the thing about that is, it shows the level it takes to win this race. His Streets Overdoyen's highest racing post rating was 140, I think. Prior to the race, I think he ended up in the race mid 140s, perhaps, that kind of thing. Well, Bardenstown lad has already run to 142, and he can already run beyond that figure. So John McConnell's got a better horse this year than he had last year, than the horse that finished third in the race. So he himself must be pretty hopeful, I would think, that he's got a horse that, can win this race. Whether he thought that last year or not, I don't know. But, I think I certainly backed Streets Overdoyen as a good each-way alternative last year at a decent price, because, he had quite a nice profile for the race. This horse has been looked after a bit better. And that's the feeling you get, really. He's been looked after as a horse that they think has a serious chance. He's had the right prep. That run at Cheltenham was on the old course. He'll benefit actually for running on the new course, because he is a proper stayer. And it's quite interesting actually this year when you look at a lot of the main contenders for the race. A lot of them haven't run over 3 miles yet. And one of the first things I look at when I look at this race is which horses have run over 3 miles, and how have they performed, and did they improve their rating for the step up in trip. And it's surprising when I actually spent a bit of time on the race that so few of them have actually run over 3 miles, which is already a hole in their form for me. If Journey with me, for example, comes up to this race now, I can't touch Journey with me for the Ballymore, because I don't think he's good enough. I don't think it's his race. I don't think it will suit him. He'll be beaten by quicker horses, or at least a quicker horse. But horses, I will say horses. If he comes to this race now, his prep's just been so poor. He'll have run over, is it 2-4 and 2-3 or something? Or is it 2-2 and 2-3? I forget which way around it is. And it's no kind of prep for this race at all. Whilst this race should suit him, it's typically a race where you need the right runs in your legs. I suppose I could say that, the one trainer that sort of booked the real trends for this race is Henry de Bromhead, because Monarindo obviously won this race at 50-1 and hadn't won a race prior to that. I think it was third and then second or something. and had no kind of rating that you'd even considered for the race. And we've had the shocks for the race over the years. So, and Jenny with me wouldn't be a shock, but he would be in terms of his prep. So, if he does end up coming here, I suppose I shouldn't really discount him. I just don't like the prep he's had, and I'm not sure I really like him for the festival at all anymore, which is a real shame. And it just feels as though they've made a bit of a mess of things. I still wonder what all of those influences are that got them to that point. But anyway, sort of setting that aside, that 142 rating that Bardenstone Lad has put up, he's got first tick in the box that I want, and that is a horse that's already run at 140 plus. That run last time, I agree with you, Jono. He went up further in my estimation because he just beat them as easy as he liked, and he was running hard through the line as well. That was a really good one to see. He likes better ground. He likes good ground, but he's won he won a soft ground bumper, and his rating for that was 123. That's a good bumper rating for a horse that's an out and out stayer. So there is some versatility there, and if it does happen to rain, it's not a disaster for him, and actually it could end up being a benefit for him because he is such a thorough stayer. I like the fact that he's travelled over 3 times now, so we know he travels well, and all 3 times he's travelled over, he's won. And sort of just referencing the market, as you said, John, he's 16-1. But if you take out the horses that are unlikely to run, he's third favourite. So he's not going to be anything close to 16-1. That's certainly true. He's going to be single figures. Probably a 6-1 type horse by the time we actually get to the day, and he could be a bit of a trendy horse. But he's 16-1. But what price would he be today? If he was with Willie Mullins or Gordonelli, what price would you guys have him at? What do you think the market would have him at if he was with either of those 2 trainers?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, you can still get 20-1 without the non-runner no bet with 365.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, he was 20-1 before that race at Musselburgh, and he's come out of the race and he's still 20-1, and that wouldn't have happened. You've got Manella Crooner was beaten, and he's gone single figures because he's with Gordon Elliott. And it was obviously a much stronger race, but
that's another point. Just talking about Manella Crooner. Manella Crooner, as you quite rightly say, has been beaten. He's got the 3-mile form in the book, but it was a really poor race. He beat a horse called Van Eye, who's done nothing, and nothing behind him has done anything either. He can only beat what's in front of him, to be fair, and he beat them easily. But it was no kind of trial, no kind of test, because he wasn't tested really at 3 miles. He just ran at 3 miles. And again, sort of, going back and looking at baseline, I mentioned that 123 RPR that Bardenstone Lad put up in a bumper on soft ground. That was £13 better than anything that Manella Crooner did in bumpers. So you just look at baseline ability there. There's a better horse there. And Manella Crooner's 3-1. Now, I'm not saying Manella Crooner hasn't improved, and I think he's a decent horse, don't get me wrong. He could win, but he is not a 3-1 shot. And when Bardenstone Lad is a 16-1 shot, I would have Bardenstone Lad ahead of him in the market. And I would personally, in terms of what I think about the race, have him as favourite. Hillcrest, who you've mentioned, Jono, I think I would also have single figures. I like him a lot too. But Bardenstone Lad, for me, is the horse for this race. I think he, again, 4 weeks out, it can be really hard to find good value horses. And, we've discussed this, Kev, you said to me earlier, if you're scratching around looking for horses now, what are you doing it for, kind of thing? Well, there are some really good value horses. It may well be that people have backed these things that we put up today.
104-1 double with Tiger Roll.
There you go.
Won't be looking so bad.
It's a nice bet, isn't it? Exactly that. We believe that Tiger Roll is outstanding value. put the two of them together, you've got 141. It's a great bet. So, did you have any additional thoughts to that, Kev, on Bardenstown? I know you were really sweet on them too.
No, I'm happy. I mean, we're 2 hours 3 minutes in, so
Yeah. We've had a long one. Okay, well, look, we've put up 10 horses tonight, and I like 9 of them. Sorry, John. But look,
that's unfair.
You like 9 of them too, and sorry, Paul. So
come on, that's unfair on Jinto. Jinto's got a fair chance.
Jinto's going to win both races. They're going to change the rules. He's going to win the Ballymore, and then he's going to have a look at the Albert Bartlett field that you two have tipped stuff up in, and he'll be like, nah.
Anyway,
I'm having that.
Before this podcast, boys, I put Curse Sublime, Echoes in Rain, Bardenstown, Lad and Paul up bad. Curse Sublime, no one and no bet. I did the other 3 in the normal market: 20 to 1, 16 to 1, 20 to 1, 16 to 1, 127,450 to 1 accumulated with bet 365. 2 places amongst those horses will pay your bet. I know we're supposed to talk in points, but I did a £10 Yankee. So that any one of those combinations pays 210, maybe 200, 210 for 2 places. 3 places will turn around about £1,000. All 4 place, and Curse Sublime, Echoes in Rain, Bardenstown, Port Bay. I see all of those at least doing that. That's 9.5k. 2 winners return between 3.2 and 5k. 3 winners return between 62.5k and 77k. But the reason I'm saying it is, if the Yankee came up there, it's a life changer, 1.6 million. There you go. So I'm recommending. That's my recommendation. Those 4 horses in a Yankee.
They won't pay you out. You'll have to settle for your core million.
Maximum payouts.
Yeah.
I want the place parts. I like that. I do them for the place parts.
Yeah.
I do my haymakers for the place parts.
Yeah. And I hope everyone will be there on the Wednesday celebrating when Redemption Day brings home the 333 to 1 treble.
Absolutely right.
What a day.
Right, boys.
Multiple.
Anything else to add?
No, man. What are we doing next week?
I've just said all my horses, haven't I? Burning Victory.
Handicaps.
Handicaps. Proper tips.
To absorb and suggest what we think. I think a bit of an open format. Let's have a discussion. If there are things that we really like and stand out, then let's talk about them.
Happy days. There's one. I've got a sneaky one in the ultimate.
2 weeks will be next week. Next week is it?
I've been keeping a couple up my sleeve, hoping for certain entries, so we'll see. I might have nothing to say.
Right. Perfect, right.
Right. An hour and a half of a podcast.
2 hours 6. Well done, anyone.
Cheers, everyone.
Well done, everyone, for getting this far.
Yeah, cheers, boys. Cheers, boys.
See you later.
You're hung in.